Welcome guys to the Slowpoke world, and if you look over there, we got young Jack from OmniPoke, and we're here, we're going to cover like a little standard tier list. Obviously, as of recording, this is like the same week the OPOP leagues got announced. We've all sort of bashing out some victories. A couple have been done already, but I just wanted to get a lay of the land for all you guys and for us as well, because you know, I mean, because we're playing too. So how are you, Jack, my friend?
I'm good. Excited for this league. It's been a long time coming, and it's taken up a lot of my time over the past few weeks. So really glad that like the reception so far has been amazing. All of the content creators have really been enjoying getting involved as well. So it's nice to see it all coming together, which is great. And yeah, it means we get to play some more Pokemon, which is, you know, never a bad thing.
Yeah, we gotta play some competitive Pokemon, because it's all well and good. Like I know OmniPoke over there, they do the serious stuff, but we know over here sometimes get a bit crazy. But now we have to knuckle down, hit that desk, and play some serious stuff. So speaking of serious stuff, let's just get involved. So the first deck I wanted to talk about, Inteleon VMAX. It was a card which I'd like to say I might have been the first person to do a deck profile for, but everyone did it. It got a lot of hype. It did see some results as well. But I've actually heard it too much now. So Jack, where do you sort of sit on Inteleon VMAX?
I actually really like the deck. I think it's one of the only non-VMAX exclusive evolution decks that sort of works in that you have to play Frostmoth. And I actually think it has a fairly good matchup across the board against some of the top tier decks. It's probably less consistent than all of them.
Yeah.
So maybe you'd wonder why playing it, but it's definitely way under the radar compared to all of them. Everyone knows about things like ADP, Eternatus, Centiskorch, you know, and they're decks that people are going to be teching for, things like that. And it feels like everyone just doesn't tech for Inteleon, doesn't really care about the matchup that much. And I think it really can just surprise people with how strong it can be. I haven't played the Hammers variant too much, but I can see the merit behind it because obviously we're in a format such that basically you have to attach 2 energy before you can do anything. ADP and Eternatus don't really do anything without attaching 2 energy, so I can see why the Hammers build is picking up in popularity, but I've only played the Frostmoth build that Tord played for the Players' Cup, and I still really enjoy it. I think it's got a fairly good Mewtwo. You can tech things like heavier scoop up nets and zigzags and the Shadowbox Mimikyu for the Mewtwo matchup, and so that seems okay. You actually have fairly nice numbers against with Zacians. 1 snipe into 160 knocks out a Zacian cleanly. You can happily 2-shot through ADPs, and they can't 1-shot you back. So ADP feels manageable. Similarly with Eternatus, you can set stuff up whilst knocking out the first Eternatus, along with the Zigzagoon pings and stuff like that. And obviously you have weakness on Centiskorch. So I actually think it has a fairly strong matchup against everything top tier. It's just probably less consistent than all of them. But if the luck's on your side, and I think you don't need to be that much more consistent or you don't need to roll too high to be consistent enough to deal with them. I actually think it's a really, really solid deck. And the other thing is, with the Frostmoth build, you have space for random water techs. There's not many great ones right now. Things like Lapras, Suicune, you know, there's a handful that you can play. None are really great, and the only one I'm playing at the moment is Keldeo GX for Eternatus, just as another big pop. But I think the point I wanted to make was I think that the deck has legs because the more water Pokemon we see, the more random water Pokemon we see, the potentially bigger the box could become. So I think the deck definitely has potential in the future as well as right now, but I think right now it's a fairly solid pick. And like I say, just because no one is teching for it or anything like that, it's not on anyone's radar, because why would it be? It's not like one of the top 4 or 5 that it can just slink in and get wins against anything, and honestly.
Yeah, that seems all pretty well. It's one of them where, like, you know, when you pop off, when you get the turn 2 VMAX with 3 energy, you're just like, oh boy, here we go. Just damage counters flying everywhere. And like you said, having a good Mewtwo, I can see Mewtwo getting played a lot. Like, I know Rahul already, he loves a bit of Mewtwo. And it's been cleaning up as well. And I guess, I know Welder Mewtwo has a super good ADP, so I know a lot of people playing ADP, cough, cough. So, like, you know what I mean? So, with that all being said now, like we said, it's got decent matchups across the board, but it has got that inconsistency. our tier list is going something like S, 1, 1.5. It just goes down in 1.5. So, Jack, where would you be putting Inteleon VMAX on a tier list?
I don't think it's S, and its inconsistency probably drops it down a tier further. So probably either 1.5 or 2. I'm probably a bit biased because I love Frostmoth and I like the deck in general, so I'm going to say 1.5, but it's definitely between 1.5 and 2, I think. I think there's more than nothing to it, but like you said, the inconsistency can hurt sometimes, and that probably means it has to be knocked down at least 0.5 of a tier.
Yeah, I'm going to put it at the top of tier 2, and we're seeing what else flies in there. We might bump it up, but I think you're right. It's right on that cusp, but I'm not comfortable putting it in at 1.5 just yet.
Seems fair.
Right, so let's keep it moving then. So let's get on to Decidueye Obstagoon. Now, again, this is a deck which I'm not a fan of. On paper, you can see why it's good, right? On one hand, you can lop off all your VMAX. On the other hand, your basics ain't hitting you. You can see why that's good. Again, consistency issues might be a thing. You're attaching for 2, you're attacking for 2 attachments, I should say, because there's no counter game Rosa anymore. So, I think, what did it take down? Was it a big Hexter, or it came second in Players' Cup, I'd like to say? It's had some big tournament damage. So my question is to you, Jack, in a best of 1 scenario, like we know, like the OPOP League is, I can see this to be some big damage because I don't want to tech for it. But if you don't, you are going to lose. So what's your sort of thought process on what's it called, Owlgoons thing?
Decigoon.
I know I can never say that.
I think it's entirely that. If you don't want to tech for it, then you have to be prepared to lose to it, because the locks it provides are so oppressive and so once they're set up, so difficult to get around that you kind of just have to take the loss. Obviously, it's 2 stage 2s, and we've just said how inconsistent 2 stage 1s are, so 2 stage 2s is even more inconsistent, but like you say, your opponent can take 5 prizes, but if you lock them with Obstruct or Decidueye, they can sometimes not take that 6th prize, so it kind of doesn't matter at times. Like you said, it did win a Hegster, and that kind of tournament is also best of 1, so you have to, or at least the preliminary part is best of 1, so you have to respect its, I think it was a Hegster anyway, you have to respect its capacity in that best of 1 format, and I think because of that, we could see some people toy with it. I think in general, talking about the league specifically, there's not too many people that play these types of decks typically, so I would be surprised if it does insanely well in our league, just because there's only 1 or 2 people that I think it's their kind of archetype. But that being said, there is a lot of weeks ahead, and maybe people will mix things up anyway, so it could still see play. In general, as time goes on, I think it's just going to be kind of that very typical kind of lock deck sort of wave where people will tech for it and people will stop playing it, then people will stop teching for it and people will start playing for it. I don't think there's anything particularly special about the deck. I think it's just always going. It's just the locking kind of walling, stalling deck archetype of this format. I don't think there's anything special about it, but I equally don't think it's particularly bad. It's just good at what it does. The Decidueye and Goon complement each other really, really well. So you kind of, even though like I say it's 2 stage 2s, they do complement each other quite well. With the Goon like being able to snipe off and deal with a lot of the 1 prizes that the Decidueye can't deal with, and then you can come in late game once you've knocked out your opponent's 1, because people are only typically playing out 1 or 2 1 prize Pokemon. And the Goons are really, really efficient at dealing with those because they can't obstruct through the. You can obstruct through them, and typically you can't deal with them. And with all of the bench damage through the Obstagoon itself and the Zigzagoon, stuff like that, you can actually often one-shot a lot of these single prize Pokemon. So, like I say, they really complement each other well. The consistency is super sketchy because you have to play 2 types of energy in a 2 stage 2 deck. So I think the deck is insanely inconsistent, but it doesn't, because of the nature of the deck where you just win the game sometimes because your opponent can't do anything, it doesn't really matter that it's inconsistent because you have time. I still am fairly adamant that ADP-Zacian that plays a Duraludon, you don't beat it, and because of that,
that's true.
That plays a Duraludon and a Mawile, I should say. You need to play both Duraludon and Mawile, I think. But I think with both of those, it's very unlikely that you're able to win that matchup, at least in my experience. But I haven't played the deck too much. But yeah, it's like I say, it's that natural cycle of lock deck sees play, people tech for lock deck doesn't see play, people stop teching for lock deck, and it's just that cycle, and that's just this format's lock deck. It's a little bit more interactive than stuff like Registall has been in the past. So
yeah, that's
I actually like this as a locking deck way more than basically any other locking deck we've ever had, because this doesn't win by deck out, this wins by prizes.
Yeah.
So I actually like this deck as in terms of lock decks in general, but I think it's a very, very risky deck to play, especially in, as you said, in best of one. Sometimes that inconsistency can overwhelm the deck, and you just lose a game because of, you know, drawing all your pieces in the wrong order, which stage 2 decks do at the best of times when there's only one stage 2. We're playing 2. So
yeah, that's it. That's why I don't think I'll play it, because like, let's say I'm playing you, Jack, for example. You're playing ADP, but you're a bit of a greedy boy. You haven't got a Morwile or Duraludon or that. You're thinking out louder, and I'm thinking, right, I got him here. Then it's like, oh, hold on, I've just got Owls and I ain't got no Obstruct, or no, I've got Evolve, but I ain't got my energy. And you're like, yeah, lol, catch ya, kill that, and you're like, oh. So even the matchup you should be winning, in theory, no guarantees that it's the best of one. You can't just chalk up and get a quick game 2 and 3. It ain't happening. So with that all being said now, Jack, it's time to place it on the list. Where are we thinking? So this is the hard bit, obviously. So
it is,
because it's you're right. When it gets going, it's so good. It's just, ooh, can you get there?
Yeah, I think I need to be reminded how far down the tier list goes. What's lower than 2?
So you got 2, 2.5. 3, then 3.5 in the wrong order for some reason. Let me change that around. Then you've got at least it's fun A, then Y.
Okay. See, it feels I'd probably put it around the same tier as Inteleon. Looking at some of the decks we're talking about today, I think it's definitely better than some of the decks we're talking about. But my top 2 to 3 tiers are very, very solidified in the decks that they are, and it's not as good as any of those, but if we're putting Inteleon down there, I'd probably say it's as good as Inteleon.
Okay.
Or it's around that level, so I'd say around 2, yeah.
Right, we could be saving that for the hot takes what we do soon. Jack said it's as good as Inteleon. Interesting. Right, let's get back to it then. What's our next deck? Right, we have Centiskorch variants. So we'll start off with the normal Centiskorch, just sort of, down the middle, Welder, the Dene, all that good stuff, and then we'll go on to the spicy ones later. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Jack. I did a tweet the other day, said the Welder decks are really good. And I did a follow-up tweet that said, I was joking. I hate them. So I can't stand Welder deck. At least this deck, with Flare Starter, you're not like you're 100% trying to get on the Welder hype train. Been picking up, shout out to you, Cashman, if you're watching. I know you've been cleaning up with some Centiskorch recently. Well done to you, good sir. So with that being said, though, Jack, I know you played a little bit of Centiskorch a bit as well. So what's your feeling on Centiskorch?
I went into the format thinking it was top tier.
Yep.
And as soon as the format developed and it came out on PTGO, I was really underwhelmed by the deck. As we've seen, it started to gain some results, both in the hands of Cashman, as well as Alex Szymanski did really well in a couple of tournaments with it, and a couple of his testing partners, I believe. A big group or a fairly large group of people. I think 5 or 6 people all played the same list, and I think they won like 3 or 4 tournaments back to back with similar lists. So I think now that the meta's settled down, it seems to be rising in popularity again and getting results again.
Yeah.
I used to think it was like going to be tier 1, and in all honesty, I haven't played it since pre PTGO Darkness Ablaze. I've only played against it and seen gameplay of it. I haven't actually got involved with the deck too much myself. But the results, I don't think, lie. It's a Welder deck and it is inconsistent. But again, I've always said this about Senti, that it's a Welder deck that doesn't.
Yeah.
It's never relied on Welder anywhere near as much as some of the other Welder decks, and that actually is a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can play like boss and stuff is pretty good, I think. So I think it's probably. I don't think it's S, and I don't think it's quite tier 1 because basically I have tier 1 reserved for like 1 or 2 decks in general.
Okay.
I think it's like tier 1.5 because I think it's better than Inteleon and Decigoons. So I'd say it's like top of tier 1.5. I think I'm happy with saying the results seem to be there, which is interesting, and I think it'll never break tier 1 because I don't think it does enough broken stuff. Like it doesn't do 270 for 2 or take extra prizes, but it can just churn out damage, and because of the HP of the VMAX, it can just be really difficult to deal with, and one VMAX can take 4 prizes, so then you just need to kill it a Dene or whatever.
Or a Heatran plow something.
Heatran, Heatran is a huge asset for the deck. I think Heatran is one of the best parts about the deck at the moment. So I think the other thing that's a little bit awkward, we'll get to this when we get to Welder Mewtwo, I guess, but with people realizing that Welder Mewtwo is such a bad matchup for ADP, some of the techs that ADP plays for Welder Mewtwo, it also hurt Centiskorch as well, or at least the ability Centiskorch is what the standard build. So I think in general it's probably going to get a little bit worse if people start teching for Mewtwo. I think like Big Charm and stuff that Mewtwo cannot get through. It means the Heatran needs 1 more energy, and sometimes that can be actually quite difficult to deal with. It means that you do have to find a Welder in one of the first 2 turns, whereas normally you wouldn't. You could just get away with Attach, Flare, Startering. Oh no, you'd still need a Welder actually. So maybe it's fine, but yeah, I don't think it's quite tier 1, but it's better than what we've talked about so far. So I'd say 1.5 pretty happily.
Yeah, I think that's pretty down the middle there. Just before we place it though, what about, was it Tord that came out with the greens Magneton double Welder shenanigans? Now that's something that I saw popped up, everyone went mad, and I ain't seen no coverage with it yet. So was that like a flash in the pan, Jack, or is there actually any I think anything good to that one? Because I mean, on paper, Weldering twice seems nuts. But does that actually happen? Do you ever have that much energy in your hand? I'm not sure. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't played that one, but the other big thing, I think the bigger selling point, at least to me, is the fact that you can Welder plus boss in a turn. Oh yeah, this is also true, yeah. Which
to me feels like nutty, because one of the best things about Fire decks used to be Ninetales, and you don't have enough time or energy to set up Ninetales anymore. So being able to Welder plus boss in a turn basically feels like old abilities I'd used to, and that deck was insane. But that being said, I think it was Tord that first showed off a list with Magnetons.
Yeah.
And then a couple of people developed it.
Oh, okay.
It's a deck that I really have not got any time behind, and I've never been very good at playing greens decks. But it's this, and we'll talk about in the deck later on, that I really wish I'd put more time into, and maybe if I can get some time into, I will.
Yeah.
Because I think greens decks inherently have answers for absolutely everything because of the nature of greens. And because of that, I think there's definitely some potential there. Obviously, greens has issues with being a greens deck because you have to go second, basically, because you need your supporters.
Yeah.
And I think the greens variant is on overall worse than the ability variant.
Okay.
But I think the other thing about the greens variant, and greens decks in general, is greens decks have a way higher skill ceiling.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people, or you can sometimes see misrepresented data from greens decks being bad when people are not learning them enough.
Yeah.
And just giving up on them, because greens decks naturally have way more decisions because you're tutoring 2 cards rather than just researching drawing 7 and seeing what you get.
Yeah,
you have to pick the cards you want, and at any point in time where you play a greens, if you pick one of the cards wrong, it could literally lose you the game, especially in a format that's as fast as this one.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I think there's definitely something there to green Senti, and I think if we haven't I haven't kept up with the data too well, but if we haven't seen it for a while, I don't necessarily think that means the deck's bad, because it could definitely be misrepresented by people trying it and saying, oh, I don't like it, and sort of giving up and playing something more familiar, which is fair enough. I do the exact same thing, but that doesn't, to me, indicate it being bad. And I actually think, whilst the ability variant is probably better, someone playing the greens variant could do very well. It's the exact same argument that like Ultimate Mewtwo used to have. Ultimate Mewtwo and some of the bigger brain Mewtwo decks had a really high skill ceiling, and people would try them and do bad with them because they didn't understand exactly what the cards were for, and they'd like make changes before even trying them and stuff like that. And then they'd say, "Oh, this deck was bad." But we saw like someone with some like Henry's skill set do so well with it. It's not just about Henry's skill set; it's about the deck being good as well. And Henry knew exactly what he was doing with that deck, and his skill set meant that he was able to play that deck to perfection. And I feel like Green's decks are very similar. You have to know what you're doing with them before you can really start analyzing your results. And once you know exactly what you're doing in every matchup, and then you start losing all of your matchups, then you have I think you're in a better place to say, okay, this was a flash in the pan. But yeah, it's the same with I think it's always been the same with Green's decks. I've never been good at playing Green's decks because I've never put enough time into them, but I've also never particularly said they're bad because I think I'm just bad with them. So I respect Green's decks a lot, even though I'm not very good with them, because typically the people that do well with them because they know exactly what they're doing with them. And that's pretty scary, to be honest.
I just wish I played so much Greens before rotation. Greens ADP, quad ADP was one of my favorite decks because it had so many options. Like you said, you had Meowth, you had the Tool Scrubber, you had like Giant Swirl, you had so much stuff. And I do feel as if Greens decks have lost that sort of wait and see hammers as well. Yeah, it's lost a little bit, but like you said, if you sort of know your way about the matchups, it's like you said, Big Charm might be really good at like getting He's like really good against Centiskorch. Well, if you're playing Greens, just see that later. Greens Tool Scrapper, like, you know what I mean. So, but like you said, again, your Greens, if it takes off, like I said, any point in the game, take one card buff, especially in the best of one as well. So, I think we're in agreement then. I think we have to place normal Centiskorch a bit higher, but the ceiling on Greens is equally, I think, could be higher. But you're ready to take that risk. So, what did we say? Tier 2 for Senti, or was it 2.5?
I think if we're splitting them up, I'd probably say 1.5 and 2.5. But if we're putting them together, I'd say like top of tier 2, maybe bottom of tier 1.5. Yeah, let's say bottom of tier 1.5. I think it is 1.5 actually. Okay,
so bottom of 1.5 for what ability?
Yeah. 1.5 definitely for ability.
Yeah,
and then Greens 2.5, like 2 or 2.5. Yeah.
I'm gonna put it. I'm putting 2.5. I think. Yeah. Greens, could that be my best way to play Greens? Maybe it is. Maybe that's what I need to do. Because I've been trying my hardest.
Greens videos, and you are a good Greens player. So
I love me.
You've just got to queue up with 3 Greens decks each week.
That's it. Like, look the way someone was. I might have been you in the announcement video, like if he can play with Greens or ADP, he's done it. That's literally what I do. Just sit there on TCJ, minus ability, right? What can we? I love me some Greens. Oh man, that's when we lost wait and see hammer. We lost Meowth. I was like, no.
That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing about Greens decks as well. At the moment, because of how fast the format is, you can't play. In my opinion at least, you can't play many of these one-off tech cards because you just need to be hyper consistent to not lose on turn or to win by turn 4 and beat Eternatus and ADP and stuff like that. But Greens doesn't worry about that because it shooters out, like you say, stuff like Tool Scrapper and random one-off Big Charm and random, these random trainers
Giant Bomb. That's a good one.
Yeah, the people are always like, oh, I'd love to play this card, but I can't because I need to research every turn. If I get it before I need it, then I just have to bin it. And that's just that's one thing that Greens really have going for them. They can play so many random techs that people will not be playing around because people are used to playing around 4 research, 4 Marnie, 4 boss. That's it. And random like Tool Scrappers here and there. I don't play around Tool Scrapper anymore, even though it's starting to see more play, because I just assume people are going to be playing like hyper consistent win the game deck. But Greens doesn't ever have to do that because you have more space to be able to play these wacky techs, which I think is great as well.
That leans very good into your best of one situation, I'm telling you, baby. Right, let's keep it moving into something where we're not going to ever consider it a techie deck. It's probably arguably the best deck. We got ourselves Eternatus variants. Now, let's get it started with Eternatus hammers, because I think that's the one I've seen do really well, gives a lot of decks problems, and Eternatus has space. Just be like, oh, here's 4 hammers, yip, yap, yop, see you later. So I think Eternatus hammers is my favourite variant, Jack. Is it yours?
No.
Oh.
because hammers are not consistency cards.
That's fair.
But I can see the merit for them because of the exact same reason that we said about Inteleon hammers. This is a very set up over 2 turns kind of format, and the hammers can slow that down for sure. So I can see the merit. I actually have not played any Inteleon on Eternatus on PTCGO because I don't have Eternatus stuff yet. I need to get that, but I played a lot of it before PTCGO.
Yeah.
I felt I had a fairly good understanding of the deck and just didn't know how it was going to be built. Now we're seeing how it's built. I feel I can project what I knew onto lists and kind of figure out how they work without playing them too much. Like you say, because there's basically all Eternatus lists are like 48 cards the same, and then there's like 12 cards where you play 2 or 3 different like packages of cards to deal with certain matchups or whatever. So I feel like the heart and soul of the deck is identical no matter what cards you play. Which is why I don't feel too inexperienced about the deck, even though I haven't played much of it on PTCGO. Regarding hammers specifically, the Eternatus I have played was hyper consistent. There was space for hammers and stuff. I just chose not to use it for hammers. I chose to use more consistency and stuff like that.
So
but like I say, I feel like
what kind of extra consistency are we putting in our Eternatus here? I'm intrigued.
Maxing out ball counts, maxing out. So I think the 4/4 Eternatus, 4 Crobat, and 4 Zigzagoon is pretty standard now. I think that should be baseline. I like things. I think my favorite Zamazenta counters are probably Spiritomb and Sableye. I think I'd play 1 Sableye and like 2 Spiritomb. So that's 19, and then maybe something like an Alolan Grimer or something. I don't think the Alolan Grimer is great, but I know I tried Alolan Grimer out for a while. Since moving away from free retreating options and moving to more switch-based lists, though, Alolan Grimer is a lot worse because you need to find a switch turn 1 to use it. So I think 19 to 20 Pokemon is fine. I basically, in the list I was playing a little while ago, I must admit, I did play a little bit on PTCGO with it, but I haven't played anywhere near enough. I had to trade cards back. I'm pretty sure I was playing like almost exclusively the basic Dark Energy and just favored heavier switch count. Deal with there's more and more people playing things like Muck in Mewtwo to try and trap Eternatus, things like that. Pikarom coming back, you can maybe start to expect Raichu's coming back as well. A lot more Giratina getting played now as well. Exactly, and the other big thing is Vikavolt has dropped off a cliff, and Vikavolt was a matchup where you really did need to see free retreating options potentially. You couldn't have switches, but now Vikavolt's almost nowhere to be seen. There's been a couple of people playing it, and generally the lists I've seen playing, the Vikavolt lists I've seen playing are playing Amoonguss, so it doesn't really matter what you play because you can't use your switches and you can't retreat anyway. But yeah, in general, I've moved away from the Dark City stuff. Me and Joe have always kind of been advocates of Viridian Forest over Dark City anyway, just to you need to hit turn 1 energy attachment. So like six basics, what they called 6 basic dark, like 6 or 7 basic dark, and a couple of Viridians feels like you're almost guaranteed turn 1 energy attachment. And on top of that, you're very, very rarely going to miss Power Accelerator if you need it. And Power Accelerator, I think, is almost, with the amount of hammers going around, almost a necessity in a lot of matchups. Because people are throwing hammers in absolutely anything. So Power Accelerator, I think, is way more valuable than anyone ever realized. And then just maxing out ball counts, maxing out comm counts. I'm very much a... Eternatus has 340 HP and deals 270 damage, so rather than add flashy things like hammers and turbo patches and stuff, I'd rather just make sure I do 270 on turn 2. So that's just my personal preference of how I was and will probably continue to play the deck for a while. But things like hammers I get. To me, it's they serve very similar purposes, but hammers are coin flip. So the idea of the hammers in my mind is to slow the opponent down so that you can get set up.
Yep.
But hammers are coin flips.
Yep.
And they don't necessarily always work. And if they don't work, then you're not getting set up as much because this hammer is not a Great Ball or a Pokecom or anything like that. And sometimes it does work, but then you're just on a level playing field again. So I don't, or you're a little bit ahead, I guess. But in general, I've always personally been a bit more of a get ahead and stay ahead kind of person than a try and slow people down to my game plan with Eternatus. And I think that's kind of what the hammers do. Turbo patches are a little bit different. I saw a turbo patch list do well a couple of weeks ago, which is kind of like get ahead and stay ahead, but also get ahead a bit quicker sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, I think Power Accelerator is just as good. The only merit to the turbo patch list is you can set up a Sableye out of nowhere, whereas you can't set up a Sableye out of nowhere with the regular list. And that can mean they can like gust up and Zacian Brave Blade your Sableye, and you're kind of you're kind of in a bit of a tough spot because then Zamazenta just walls you.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I think with the amount of hammers and Full Metal Wall and stuff that Luca Metal can play, I don't know that it necessarily matters. I think Luca Metal is actually a fairly good matchup. Eternatus is actually a fairly good matchup with Luca Metal, even with Zamazenta, because even with Sableye, because a lot of the time I feel like they can double Zamazenta.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which can be sketchy. Though I have had some games against Eternatus with Luca Metal where that doesn't work, and one Sableye is enough. So I'm still undecided how good Sableye is, but I think that's the best of a bad bunch. I don't think Hoopers work as Zamazenta counters because you don't do enough with them.
Yeah.
But I think Hoopers are the best techs to play if you don't care about Zamazenta. I think Hooper is way better than both Spiritomb and Sableye, but I just respect Zamazenta too much to play the Hoopers over that stuff. I'd rather play Hoopers. I'd rather play Sableye Zamazenta counters and not run into Zamazentas than play Hoopers that make all of my other matchups better, because I think Eternatus is so good. You don't need to make your other matchups necessarily better. I'd rather just play more of the good cards.
Yeah.
What was the other thing I was going to say about Eternatus? I don't remember. It'll come back to me.
Anyway, like you said, it's super strong. 270 turn 2. It's hard to. It's one of them. Right? Us TCG players, right? Like if you're listening to this video, you're probably the same. You want to know every possible eventuality for every deck. Sometimes 270 turn 2 is just good enough. Like that's all you gotta do. Like don't worry about Hooper or Turbo Patch. Just do your 270 turn 2 every game, and you'll be fine. And that's what I find with Turbo. Sometimes I'll be like losing on TCG or some game. I'll be like, let's just play something good. ADP or Eternatus tend to be my two go-tos for that. It's just like buff. Oh, okay, this is how it should be. Like,
crazy how strong that card is.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty nuts.
You just win by playing the deck sometimes because the deck is so good. So I get the mindset behind hammers and turbo patches and stuff like that, but in my mind, just playing a raw, like super consistent 60 should raise your win rate just as much as teching for other stuff, because 340 HP and 270 damage on turn 2 is like filthy. Yeah,
and I think my very first Eternatus list, so before the sets come out, mode you're doing like IRL table, I actually think my list played 4 quick, 4 great, 4 comms, and 2 Pokeballs. I was like, I'm getting set up. That's what's gonna happen. So that was my first idea with the Raven. That's what I was first thinking. So
I've never gone as wild as Pokeball, but I do like the 4-4-4 consistency. Yes.
Pokeball. Let me tell you, when you hit that Pokeball, I can get whatever I want right now. Okay, so with all that being said, is this the first tier S deck?
That's the question, isn't it?
I mean, there's not many possible tier S's, so this has to be one, right? Jack, do you want it? I'm teetering him to the edge here. Go on.
I still think it's tier 1. I still don't think it's as good as... I mean, ADP is what I consider tier S. And I still don't think it's as good as ADP. I am a massive... all of my testing has been with ADP. Joe's done 100 games, and I've probably clocked in just as much, if not more, just randomly on the ladder, not necessarily recording the same data as he has, but like I've probably clocked in 100, 200 games with ADP just because I feel like it's consistent and stuff, and that's why I feel like it's tier S. And whilst Eternatus is good and can beat ADP and can beat anything, in all honesty, I still think it's tier 1 because I don't know whether it's because I like ADP too much, or whether or ADP-Z too much, or whether it's because the deck is actually worse. But I think ADP is literally the only deck in tier S in my eyes.
Okay.
But it's like Eternatus is easily top of tier 1 and arguably tier S. I just think ADP is above and beyond everything else at the moment.
Fair enough. But let's just keep it moving then to my favourite deck in format, ADP-Z. I've gone against the order there, Jack. I apologise, but let's just get him out. Let's just get him out of the way. Where is he? Oh, ADP-Z. There you are. Whoa, this could be the easiest one. Right, so we just spoke about why Jack was really hesitant to put Eternatus into tier S, and he said there's only one deck that could be there, and that's ADP-Z. It's just a bit bonkers, isn't it? And if little old silly me, this is my favourite deck and I can play it pretty good, that's how you know it's a good deck. Jack, talk to me. Talk to me, Jack. Why is it tier S?
I think the deck is absolutely insane. I think the release of Boss made the deck almost insane alone, but the fact that we had Turbo-Zacian, which I think was better than ADP for a long while, people didn't realise how good Boss was for ADP-Z, and then when this format came around, people realized that bossing twice, like GXing then bossing twice, is absurd. It's like it's broken, and you can do that in every single matchup because every single deck has to play the Denes and Crobats, because every single deck wants to be consistent, and I just think there isn't a matchup where ADP is like, oh, okay, this could be a problem, because I think it can win any game at any deck it's against. There's probably like hard counters out there, sure, but I think just the power level of the deck is so high. I think there's not much that can stand up to it from a raw 60 card standpoint. There will be, obviously, its win rate can be fairly low. It's very, very targeted. Mewtwo Welder getting stronger is actually really bad for it, because it's one of the worst matchups out there. There's really not much you can do in that matchup at all. But that being said, like some of the decks we've talked about so far, all of these decks play multiple Crobats, multiple Dedenes, Eldegoss, even just random 2 prize Pokemon that have 180 HP or less. That can get Ultimate Raid, and even if you don't Ultimate Raid, you still have 4 Metal Saucer plus at least 1 Intrepid Sword every game to attach extra energy. You know, everyone knows how good this deck is, and I think it's as good as people say it is. I think there's some people saying that, you know, they think it deserves a ban, but it's not that good, it's just unhealthy. But I think it actually is just that good. Yeah. And it's in my eyes, it's the only tier S deck, because it's so head and shoulders above every other deck. Like I say, I think Eternatus is the only deck that's close to being able to go toe to toe with it, with a equal win rate. But I think even that can sometimes struggle. I just feel like ADP just does what it does what it wants. It gatekeeps the format, like people say, and I do think it genuinely does, to an extent, gatekeep the format. Whether it's an issue or not is for another video, but I think because of that fact alone, and how meta warping it is, it just shows how strong the deck is overall. And yeah, without a doubt, in my mind, it's tier S.
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit. You know, like you said, oh, sometimes you get Ultimate Ray. Like, that's how good the deck is. If I get an Ultimate Ray, I'm like, oh, boy, I got an Ultimate Ray in this game. What's all that about? Like, the deck is that good, you assume you never get Ultimate Ray, and it still will clean up. It literally doesn't matter. Like, if you get an Ultimate Ray, I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, where's this going? Like,
it's crazy.
Oh,
it's
dear.
actually crazy.
And like you said, even if you're trying to play a hard counter deck or something that even has a decent ADP, like if you get a bit greedy and you put down one Crobat or then they, oh boy, that's 3 prizes, you know, 3. You can just eke out another 3 somehow, and against other random stuff, you know, Zacian's like bang 260, or you know, upwards if you want to play some funny stuff as well. Like it's just, it complements each other so well. It's all basics. You can play 4 bosses for a catcher. It literally doesn't matter. Like the deck is absolutely silly. And it's a deck I've by far played the most of online as well. And it's a deck, spoiler alert, I will be playing it a lot in the OPOP League. Don't you worry about that. Like I said, probably 2 serious, 1 rogue. I'd almost guarantee every week it's going to be an ADP-Z. Like
I think it's probably going to be the deck that, at least in this first few weeks of the format, will probably have the most plays in the league. We're going to do the stats in it, and I expect it to have the most plays and probably the highest win rate as well, in all honesty. Yeah, it's nuts, and I think it's by far and away tier S.
Yeah, very good. So that's ADP-Z. Oh, ADP, one of my favourite cards of all time. I love it. And I play absolutely everything. We'll probably see some other ADP variants from Old Hot Chalk, but ADP-Z is definitely the best one. Right, now let's go from tier S to somewhere tumbling a little bit lower. Let's get back to our list then, shall we, Jack? So we got ourselves Risk Taker Toxicity. Now, I'm not even going to lie, folks. When I read these OPOP rules and I saw it was best of 1, I was like, okay, let's get proficient with Risk Taker. Because I know some people ain't going to know what's going on. I'm like, whoop, there's -5. Whoop, there's -5. And all of a sudden, you know, you ain't got a lot of deck left. Funnily enough, ADP can stop that stuff down entirely. But yeah, best of 1 conquest. I'm willing to take the old risk. Pun fully intended. Jack, what do you feel about old Risk Taker?
I actually have played this deck, and I actually have played this deck quite a lot. It's a lot of fun, and people sometimes just lose to it, but I think that's all it is, unfortunately. I don't think it's too great. It's one of those decks where if it all goes right, you can actually mill down the deck pretty quickly. And you know, I think, unironically, not that I agree with the Belelba ban, I think if Belelba was in format, it actually would be a real threat.
Yeah.
I think without Belelba, it's not quite good enough. But I've tried, well, me and a couple of other people have tried multiple different variants. We've tried multiple different engines, and none of them have quite been good enough in my eyes to put the time into testing it more. But like you say, in best of 1, it could surprise people. 40 or Risk Taker getting rid of 5 cards is a big deal, and sometimes you can snipe stuff. And it feels like they're the kind of games. It feels like you have to get pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're the kind of games that you are going to win. But you know, that being said, I said how everyone's playing Dedenne right now, and everyone's playing for Research right now. And if they, you start with 47 cards. If you Dedenne and Research once, you're down to 35. Let's say you Research once more, you're down to around 24. Draw 4 cards through attaching, through searching for Pokemon, stuff like that. You only need 4 heads on Risk Taker. That being said, again, 4 is more than 3, so you can't really do that against ADP. But every other deck, you actually, if you draw stuff in the right order, you actually have the potential to mill people, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, I think it's a meme, and I don't think it's very good at all, but I think it's probably good enough to maybe steal a win here and there. And it's been far and away my favorite not good deck. because it's so like when you do win, it's so good. It's just it feels so brilliant. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I don't think it's quite good enough to. What were our bottom 2 tiers?
So we've got Y question mark, that's the lowest one, and you've got at least it's fun A. And I imagine this will be at least it's fun A. That's what...
Definitely at least it's fun because it's not a theme deck. It actually has a win con, and it's even the games you lose, they're kind of fun unless you flip like 4 double tails or whatever. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I don't think it's quite got the legs to be in the meta game, but it's a fun mill deck, and I think it's the best mill deck out there as well. I've seen like Palisand and Rhydon mill and stuff like that, and all of those just seem worse to me than Toxicity, because Toxicity, whilst it's on a coin flip, I think you have to lean into that luck factor rather than just be happy with discarding 3 with Palisand or whatever.
No.
Because you need to get lucky. But getting lucky is, if you do get lucky, you can actually win the game. Whereas if you get lucky with Palisand, it feels like you still only discarding 3 per turn, which isn't enough. But risk taker discarding 5 is actually a big deal. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's a deck that I actually have toyed around with a bit. And maybe I'll bring it back one week. It would be fun to maybe try and mill someone. I guess.
Risk taker will definitely be getting sleeved up for me.
Do we just have risk taker mirrors in our week?
Risk taker mirror.
We each bring Risk Taker, Rhyperior, and Palisand. That would be quite fun.
Oh my lord, that would be one hell of a week. That could be one of the off weeks, one of the theme weeks.
One of the off weeks. Everyone has to play Risk Taker Mill.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do damage in this one. You have to win other ways. Oh boy, now that would be interesting. Yeah, I think this tier was literally made for Toxicity. At least it's fun, because it is fun, and you will still steal some games, but yeah. Well, let's keep it moving. Next one, Hydreigon. Oh, now I wish Hydreigon was. I love Hydreigon as a Pokemon. I love it as a card. I love the Dark type attacking core. I have been trying to make Dark Moon to work so much, and when you pull it off, you just like, oh boy, take that 3 prizes. No, yeah, I guess you ain't playing no trainers.
Yeah, crazy.
Woo. But that being said, to get that Pale Moon off, has come back down to ground now a little bit. You know what I mean? I was in High Roll City now. You know what I mean? Now I'm back down to ground. You need 6 energy. You know. So you have to get your stage 2 with 6 energy. How often is that happening? You know, I quite like the Mewtwo idea. So you can just pluck out You pluck out your attackers when you want, but then Mewtwo is not the most sturdiest. And you still need 6 energy to get your main one off anyway. So Jack, what do you feel about Hydreigon?
I can't say I've played it.
Okay.
I can't say I've particularly thought about it, other than the fact that it's a stage 2.
But you do have peers though. I mean, it might be a little bit slow, but you know.
One thing I will say is Rain Dance is fun. And I actually agree that the Dark attacking core is crazy good.
Yeah.
There's some really, really good attacks in the Dark attacking core. The issue is they all need like 5 or 6 energy to be good, and there isn't time to do that. I'm going to compare it. If we're following the list, we're going to talk about Sandaconda Colossal next, right? And in comparison to Sandaconda Colossal, it feels more win more and has a worse typing, because obviously Sandaconda Colossal is fighting type, whereas Hydreigon's Dark. And because of that, I think it's just inferior to Sandaconda Colossal in almost every way.
Yeah, that's a sad way of looking at it, but true.
But that being said, it probably does have more. Like the one game you high roll Hydreigon turn 2 into like Dedenne drawing 5 energy into like research, finding more energy, and you know, being able to gust something. Like the ultimate high roll is probably higher than any of the other stage 2 decks because of how versatile the Dark attackers are. But I don't think that the high roll will happen enough for it to be worth it. And the issue with Rain Dance is it's all from hand, And right now, we need to be playing boss every turn to win the game, which means you can't research to find energy, which means you have to high roll even more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like ultimate high roll. It's like the most high rolly stage 2, in my opinion, or at least that we're talking about today. And I think for that reason, it's not quite good enough. I don't know. It feels bad putting anything in Y, but I think this is possibly a contender for Y, because I think it wouldn't be. It might not be fun getting high rolled with as a stage 2 to even put it in the fun category. If we were getting rid of the Y category, I don't mind getting rid of the Y category.
Fun. We haven't got terribly bad decks here, so
let's call it fun.
Yeah,
let's call it fun.
And you know what? As a big proponent of Hydreigon, let me tell you, I'd love me some Hydreigon. I've played a lot of Hydreigon, and you lose a lot of Hydreigon as well, so I'm not going to sit there and pretend like every game you get off that Dark Moon. There's always that term, if I get Dark Moon here, 1. And like, you'll research or you'll pidge, you'll get your stuff, you'll detonate, well, I need to hit either Rare Candy Hydreigon plus 2 energy, or I've got my Hydreigon, I need to hit like 3 energy, and it's always one card, and you're like, God damn it! Like, literally so close. Like, but that's just the nature of the beast when you're attacking for 6 energy and a stage 2. Like, that's just what's gonna happen. So I don't wanna build your guys' hopes up there watching this video. Like me 3 years ago, I'd have been like, Jack, shut up, tier 1, mate. I'll knock out anything.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I'll show you when I play you. But I have matured since then, and as well, I can get excited about it doesn't mean it's tippy top tier 1, unfortunately. But stage 2 that potentially might be tippy top a little bit more. Like we said, we mentioned a little bit of Sandaconda. Obviously one that was it a Hex? I can't. No, it was a Hyperlux, wasn't it? Hyperlux ban ADP event, and I guess in theory, if you only play, ADP once, that could open the door. If Sandaconda can have decent everywhere else, all of a sudden in this kind of a format, Sandaconda could be a decent little pick. How does that sound to you? Is that a fair assessment, Jack, or?
I think so. I actually had a friend play Sandaconda in the Pi Open a couple of weeks ago, and it actually impressed him how he went like 5-0. I think he made like second phase or something. I can't remember. Maybe it was the week where you had to go like 8-1 to get into cut or something, and he didn't make it. I can't remember, but he went like 5-0 or something, and I was actually really. I thought, why has he done this? Why has he wasted his time? But it actually really impressed me. Yeah. He did hit no ADPs, in all fairness, and ADP is obviously an issue for the deck. But like you say, in this kind of format, you can actually, if you can beat the ADP or dodge the ADP, I actually think the deck has legs. It should have a fairly good Eternatus. You're a 2-prizer, they're a 3-prizer, but you trade up. Obviously, you're a stage 2. It's a little bit awkward. You have to go like super consistent into the stage 2 engine. I think you can't run anything fancy because you just have to get the stage 2 set up. Otherwise, you can't stream Sandaconda particularly well. Luckily, that first attack, I can't remember what it's called.
Sambra?
Gather Stand or something. Sandra. Yeah,
something like that.
Means that you don't have to hit turn 2 Colossal. You can, going second, attach a second energy with that first attack and be able to attach knockout next turn. The issue is, if you're doing that, that means they only need to hit 7 Pokemon to knock you out. They only need to hit 7 Pokemon to knock you out, not the full 9, and that's not difficult for Eternatus. So, whilst you don't always need the Sandaconda or the Colossal, sorry. They also need to low roll for you to not be punished. There is a world where you're not punished, but they do need to low roll. So that being said, like I said, it was impressive how not bad it was. I'm not going to say how good it was, but how not bad it was. And in a format where you can dodge and weave ADP, and maybe you don't want to play one of these higher tier decks, I actually think it's fine. 220 for 3 is fairly good numbers. Being a 2-prizer right now, again, if you can dodge ADP, is pretty good against a lot of these 3-prizers because you're able to trade up into them. It's not great, but it's not awful. It's way better than Hydreigon, I will give it that. But it's not, meta breaking or anything, which is kind of sad because there's been people that have been advocates of it for a long time. I think tier wise, I don't think it's Inteleon and Decidueye's tier. It's probably worse than those, but it's definitely not down with Toxicity and stuff. So it's somewhere in between those. It's better. It's actually like a real deck. It's just like only just a real deck.
Right. So lower than these. Okay. So by that description, then Jack, we're talking like a 2.5 free jobby. I feel 3 is a bit too harsh. I think.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the rest of the field outside of ADP, look at the rest of the field outside of ADP. It's actually not too bad. Like it's.
I don't know what else is going in 3, but I'm happy to put it in 2.5.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it in a 2.5.
Probably like low end of 2.5, but yeah, 2.5.
Oh, Jack's being a bit harsh here. Don't worry, Sandaconda, you're staying right in 2.5, mate. Don't you worry about that.
In looking at what we've got to chat about, I actually think outside of stuff that's going to be in the fun category, there's nothing lower than Sandaconda. So I think if you wanted to get rid of that 3 category, that would be fine. Because I don't think I'd put anything in there anyway. And I think Sandaconda is a very good 2.5 deck because, like you say, outside of ADP, it can actually win stuff.
Yeah.
It's a shame that you can't get like super crazy with the Pokemon you can play in it.
Yeah.
Like the craziest you can get. I've seen someone playing the person that played it. He played a Ninetales. I wasn't keen on the Ninetales. It didn't do much for me. I didn't see what kind of attacks you wanted to be copying. But that being said, it's kind of an efficient. It's fairly good in the Luke Metal matchup, to be fair, because you're a fire type Zacian basically.
True.
You can get free 2 prizes on them there. So yeah, maybe Ninetales is like as techy as you can go. And Ninetales is it's another of those cards, like we say, in a best of 1 format where you can just drop it and be like, surprise, I'll copy your attack and win the game. So yeah, I guess 2.5 or 3. I'm happy with 2.5, sure.
Yeah, I think. Don't worry, Sandy, mate. You're staying in there, old Sandaconda. Right. Okay. On to another one. I think could be quite difficult to play. Dragapult VMAX. Now, super interesting card because before rotation it was tippy top tier 1. You could say, and now it's sort of drops off a cliff a little bit. And you could obviously say, Eternatus is the big, scary geezer that scared him away. One of the good things to Dragapult pre-rotation is I had a semi-decent ADP, which is always fun. So Jack, have you experimented much with Dragapult? I've done a couple of videos on it, but it's not my kind of card really. It's not bonkers enough. So how do you feel about Dragapult?
Eternatus is obviously an issue. I've seen worlds where Eternatus has lost to Senti, but I don't think that's anywhere near typical. I think it's like a 99-1, honestly. I think it's super unfair. That being said, if Mewtwo keeps getting popular, it's such a really, really good Mewtwo check. And again, in this best of 1 once you've won with the deck, you can't play it anymore kind of format. If you're able to sack off the Eternatus matchup pretty early, Dragapult doesn't have that many like hard counters. I don't think it has many great matchups. But I don't think it has many hard. Like Eternatus is the only hard counter. I'd be pretty okay playing anything else. Senti is a little bit scary because they can eventually one-shot you or like do big 2-shots to you, whereas you're always 3-shotting them. Yeah. So Senti is the only thing that scares me a little bit, but any Centiskorch that's playing Jirachi, you should be able to overcome because you can hopefully push through one Centiskorch and then knock out a Jirachi in a Dinner for game. It's super hard. I think outside of Eternatus, Centiskorch is probably the worst matchup for Dragapult. It's probably slightly unfavored. But I think other than that, like ADP is probably okay if you're able to be disciplined with your bench. And just keep it to Dragapult VMAXs. Obviously, Zacian can't one-shot a Dragapult VMAX. And maybe you can get enough counters down. It seems a bit sketchy, but it seems definitely plausible. Yeah, for sure. Mewtwo should be fairly plain sailing, I think. They still run things like... what am I thinking? They still run things like Incineroar, but I haven't seen all that many Jirachi GX anymore. Which is definitely noteworthy. Anyone that is playing Jirachi GX, obviously, all of a sudden, it's a bit better for you. But you can even play stuff like Mimikyu, Shadowbox Mimikyu in that list as well to stop abilities, and maybe even yes, you're teching for what should be a good matchup anyway, but I'm pretty sure with Mimikyu, Shadowbox Mimikyu, that should be almost auto-win in a lot of scenarios because they can't Jirachi because you can just turn off their ability and then knock out their Mewtwo. Weak Guard isn't seeing any play in Mewtwo right now. So yeah, it feels like a very good Mewtwo check, an okay ADP answer, like probably even. You have to draw fairly well, and they have to draw not insane. You have to be like disciplined with your bench and stuff like that, but potentially doable. Zamazenta seeing more play is a little bit scary, but at the same time, you have counters on the bench, and Zamazenta isn't really an issue. I feel in ADP too much. It's more of a stalling tactic rather than something that they lean into. And that you can probably boss around them, so it might be okay. Senti, like I say, feels pretty sketchy, but that's just conjecture. I've never seen that matchup ever because I haven't seen a Dragapult in a long time. It feels like that matchup would be quite hard though because they probably two-shot you, whereas you three-shot them. But at the same time, maybe it's fine. I don't know. So yeah, it could be okay. Oh, the other kind of bad matchup is Luca Metal because Lucario Metal like walls all of your damage. It's actually gross. It's like minus 80. And so you're doing 50 for 2, like 100, I guess, for 2, which is just like they can do 130 for 4 and probably outpace, or 150 for 4 and probably outpace you. So yeah, that feels like a pretty bad matchup. So it feels like it's got a lot of dodgy matchups, but it could, like, if you know your opponent is super all in on like Mewtwo and stuff like that, it's a fairly good like random rogue check as well. Dragapult is actually a very, very good rogue check because it does sniping damage, which a lot of rogues struggle to deal with. So yeah, it's like probably a fine pick 3 deck. But I think it's fairly weak in general. I'd probably put it in around Sandaconda range. Probably, I think it's better than Sandaconda just because it's probably more consistent. And it takes like the same auto loss to something like Sandaconda does to ADP in Eternatus. But it does also, like I say, probably kind of hard check Mewtwo like Sandaconda does Eternatus. So they feel kind of similar, but Dragapult just feels way more consistent because it's one stage 1 rather than a stage 2. So I'd say it's probably down in that tier wherever we put that. It's like 2.5.
Yeah, I'll put it in 2.5. Yeah, it's
I think that's not bad.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I feel as if there's like a next level where Dragapult could go, and it's gonna be some sort of combination of cards where it's just waiting to be crept back in. It's just, I don't know. I'm thinking. I'll be thinking. Don't you worry. But but like I said, it still does what it does. It's super efficient when it's not, hitting into loot mail. Like it's a good random stuff slayer. And yeah, there are some content creators in this league, myself. There's some other content creators, like Little Dark Furious things to mind, where he's going to be bringing some weird stuff. And if you could just be like, I'll just put 5 there and 5 there, and that's gone, whatever that scary thing was, like, So, like you said, in a pick 3, it could be a very good pick 3, because, like, I'm sure there might be some other people like me who's going to say that third deck's going to be bonkers. Like, imagine Toxicity, for example. You're just like, yeah, we just kill these little bench Toxels down there. Stop that nonsense, please.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like it's very good at cleaning up random crap matchups.
Yeah.
The other, you said about that being something there to Dragapult.
Yeah.
The one part that no one has played it with, and I think that there's probably a reason because it's probably bad. But
get my pen and paper.
Pen and paper. Tina-Chomp is getting stronger at the moment.
Okay.
And Tina-Chomp Dragapult sounds like something that maybe has legs. I don't know. Like placing a few damage counters to be able to Calamitous Slash to 50, 240 stuff. I haven't, when we get to Tina-Chomp, I haven't played any of the new Tina-Chomp lists. I really want to, because I'm really, really interested in how they play. I've never played Tina-Chomp, but I kind of knew how to play it back when it was good. So I'm really interested to see how these new Tina-Chomp lists fare. And maybe that, like that, this is nothing for me. This could be the worst combination in the history of Pokemon combinations, but random crap thrown together. It feels like some kind of Dragapult Tina-Chomp deck could maybe be something. They both run off Psychic Energy.
Yeah.
And the Tina-Chomp's fighting energy cost can be mitigated with Karate Belt. So you can maybe go like behind on prizes, drop in some counters, things like that, and then cleaning up with Tina-Chomps somehow. I don't know. It sounds a bit sketchy, but maybe there's something there. That's probably something for your like your brain will think up something way cleverer than mine will. I'll just give you 2 cards and say make these 2 work.
That was a stream we did once.
I'll let you work out how to play those 2 cards together. But just thinking about it like very pen and paper right now. Maybe there's something to like to Dragapult with like a Tina-Chomp teched in or something. I don't know.
Okay, interesting. I know we're going to go against the order now, Jack, but we're going to stick with the Tina-Chomp whilst we're here, since we did sort of brush over a little bit. Now, this is a deck, as of time of recording, what is it, 24th? A lot of hype recently, the last 2, 3 days, 4 days. It's been popping off. I've been seeing Marshchamp in there, been seeing Tina-Chomp, and I was surprised because I thought Tina-Chomp would be one of those cards that's just been power crept out of the format. Jack, I know you played Tina-Chomp. I've seen you play Tina-Chomp before, thinking about it at IRL. How is it able to stick about? Because this doesn't seem good to me.
I think 240 for 3 is good. Yeah. Turns out, and that's, I would say, one of the main selling points. Again, I can't say I've played enough of it or looked into it enough recently. It's a deck that I really want to look into. I know a couple of very, very good players have been playing it recently.
Yeah.
To like top 16s, top 8s. So it can't be nothing, right? There has to be something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I need to get my head around what that something is before I can definitely fairly evaluate it. But from what I understand, it's basically like efficient, like even though HPs have gone up, just being able to do efficient damage is always good. Being able to add like greens packages, like we said earlier on, for random tech cards that your opponent isn't playing around. Yeah. The Marshchamp being fighting typing, if they're playing that, you can actually get the Tina-Chomp set up in a turn with Coco. You can run like Vikavolt. It feels like a very, even though it's being called Tina-Chomp, I like that it's being called Tina-Chomp, but it actually feels like a very boxy deck because, like you say, you can run like, you're running Coco anyway in a lot of scenarios to set up a Tina-Chomp quickly. So you can run like random Vikavolt to slow people down as well. You know, you can like Vikavolt poke into Calamitous Slash for 240, doing 290. So you only need like a couple of Zigzagoon pings or a Vitality Band or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the list plays, but this is how it's all working in my head. Like,
yeah, there was a bit.
You can do some pretty wild stuff whilst maybe slowing your opponent down enough to be able to apply some pressure. So yeah, it's a deck that I'm not familiar with, and I'm gonna find it really difficult to put on the tier list because I just don't know enough about it. But the raw success of the deck and the fact that these, like we saw Tina-Chomp win a regionals this year in Expanded, and that deck felt pretty big brain to me. And it's it's another deck that I feel, if piloted correctly, actually has I would think has a fairly high skill ceiling. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to struggle to put it on a tier list, somewhere on the tier list. I'm probably just going to dump it somewhere in the middle, like tier 2 or 2.5, just because I'm not entirely confident knowing where it goes for sure. But it's a deck that I really want to look into over the next couple of days because, like you say, it seems to have popped out of nowhere and then started getting results out of nowhere. I think it like first appeared like about a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago or something like that. And I feel like I've seen it in, or I've seen it talked about in like a couple of top 16s and stuff almost every day ever since. Yeah. So yeah, it feels like there might be something there, and I want to look into what that something is, even if it turns out to be a flash in the pan, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I've put it in 2.5 for now, because we both don't exactly know what's going on. It's been seeing way too much hype from way too many good players and been consistently doing well over these last few days for me to like consider putting it any lower. So I'm gonna put it about in the middle. Probably better than Sandaconda, let's be fair. It's probably better than Dragapult as well, to be honest with you. So we'll put it around there. Right now, speaking of cards that I don't know how are still around and should have been power crept a long time ago, we've got ourselves Pikarom. I've been seeing it mostly played with hammers. I didn't realize Pokemon had that space, to be fair. I did enjoy a Greens Pokemon back in the day. In fact, I actually think I did see a Greens Pokemon list post-rotation, now I think about it. But Pokemon, Jack, have you played much of it post-rotation?
I haven't touched it post-rotation, but I have seen it a little bit, and yeah, it has had a massive resurgence. It actually won a tournament the other day.
Yeah, that's it.
The other day, which is pretty interesting. And I think it won another tournament last night that we've only just got the data from as well. So, pretty interesting stuff. In my mind, again, it's a bit like, where has this all come from? And again, I haven't played it, I haven't looked into it too much. I've seen a couple of people playing it, but in my mind, it's just back to 3 for 150 is efficient. Let's set that up. Choo-Choo can paralyze stuff, and that can punish people.
Yep.
It feels way more passive than it used to, or I would think it feels way more passive because there's no E-Power anymore.
Yeah.
There's no Thunder Mountain anymore. You can't pop off and take a knockout on turn 1 and be like, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
Deal with me. You're probably pretty much settling on turn 2 full blitz like 95% of the games. But again, maybe that's not the case when you get down to the nitty gritty. But I think in general, you have to be pretty sure that full blitz is like a 95% of the time just going to be a turn 2 attack. Which surprises me that it has pushed its way into the format because of that. Because
yeah, I know.
That feels super slow.
Yeah, doesn't even two-shot Eternus for Pete's sake.
It doesn't two-shot Eternatus, which is a big deal. You can GX them though.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
That can be something, I guess. It feels like Eternatus should have a fairly good matchup against it because 240 is not difficult for Eternatus to hit at all.
There's that as well. Yeah, just blow him away. Like a werewolf. Ooh,
you live through ADP, which is interesting. Meaning that you can probably actually like safely attach to yourself, and maybe like full blitz into Tagvolt to knock out like a Dene or something. Maybe enough to win that matchup.
Yeah.
Paralyzing these big these big VMAXs with Raichu is how I would imagine that matchup goes. You have to just paralyze, like stamp, paralysis, prey. I imagine, like, in my mind, the deck is basically stamp, paralysis, dot deck nowadays.
Yeah.
But again, I need to be familiar with, I've seen like one list. I need to be more familiar with more successful lists to know whether that's the strategy or not. So yeah, it's another one that I'm not sure. I don't know how it's seeing so much success, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be. It means that I'm just not educated enough into knowing why it's doing well because I haven't looked into it enough. It feels better than some of the decks we talked about though, and I think from the results and from just the amount of play, like it got like I think it was maybe a Hexter or something. I don't know. It was the most played deck in top 32.
Oh wow.
Or top 16 or something like that, which was pretty crazy to me. There was like 4 in top 8 or 4 in top 16 or something like that, and then another.
Is this 2020 or like?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably better than stuff like Dragapult.
Yeah.
It'd be one that I would feel is on a similar path. It is in a similar boat to Tina-Chomp, in that I don't really know where to place it, but I think the results are slightly better than Tina-Chomp's from what I can tell.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's probably like bottom of the tier above Tina-Chomp.
Yeah, that's what I was literally about to say, bottom of tier 2, because it's had success for a longer time, but equal level. Like, it has been popping up all over the shop. And I couldn't tell you why, but but it's hard to argue when the data's there and it's doing well. I can't just be like, well, it doesn't two-shot Eternatus, so it definitely can't be good. Well, clearly it's good, so it has to be one where, this is long enough to just put him in a tier 2, keep him there and be like, fair enough. I don't see how. Coming on to a deck that hasn't actually seen any play at all, which is kind of interesting, because I know coming into post-rotation, me and Joe from Poke as well, we were both loving the idea of a good old Turbo-Zacian. I've actually got a funny deck that I'm going to do the deck profile for either today or tomorrow, which is going to be a Turbo-Zacian-esque build. Because on his own, he's a good attacker. Right?
I wonder if that's a list that I also saw today.
It probably is, to be fair. Did you see it on Twitter?
It's the 4-4 list.
Yeah, 4 of everything. It reminds me of anyone that's been. So basically, spoiler, if you're watching this far into the video, I'm going to let you in for a little secret. The next deck profile is going to be 4 Zacian, 4 bosses, 4 research, 4 Marnie, like 20 energy, 4 Saucer, 4 Patch, 4 Jirachi, 4 of everything, right? If you've been playing long enough, there was a 20 energy Buzzwole deck that was locking about at one point, and it reminds me of that, where it's just like, right, let's go crazy. This is probably going to be better than that as well. So, yes, that's why that's going to be your next video. Shall I bring that into, as of recording, it's my first OPOP league tomorrow, so shall I surprise that on Mitch? Oh, here you go, mate. Look at that, hit 3 energy off my Intrepid. What a shock.
Yeah, that probably happens fairly consistently.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that is the Turbo-Zacian we're talking about now, but a sort of Turbo-Zacian archetype. Jack, why has it not been popping up? I thought it'd be good, man.
I think both ADP and Luke Metal complement Zacian so well that there's not much reason to not play them. I don't think it's necessarily that Turbo-Zacian is bad. It's that ADP and Luke Metal are so good that you wouldn't not play them.
Yeah.
The reason to play Turbo-Zacian before was always the Jirachi win con.
Yep.
And that's no longer a thing. So there's it definitely saw a drop in play because of that. I think I also did see that deck, and I'm also pretty interested in that deck. You mentioned just the 4 of everything. I wanted to try it myself, so I'll be pretty interested to see how that goes, because announcing 230 every turn. Yeah. We said with Eternatus, that's pretty good. And whilst 230 isn't 270, it's still two-shotting everything. Yeah. And that's pretty good. I worry about the ADP matchup if they are able to get the GX off before you can attack, because generally you can hit into them, they can hit into you, you can hit into them, you can knock them out and take 3 prizes, but then they can probably set up 2 Zacians and just take 6 prizes before you can take your 6. So the ADP matchup does scare me. Yeah. Because I don't think you apply enough pressure. You have to boss every Zacian you see so that they can never actually set up a Zacian. Because if they ever set up a Zacian, I think if they ever set up 2 Zacians, you just lose. Yeah, 100%. If they ever set up 1 Zacian, it might still be bad because Metal Sorcery exists, so maybe they can just set up another one out of nowhere anyway. So ADP scares me, but outside of ADP and I guess the fire decks seem kind of scary as well. Some of the other decks, it actually seems okay against. Announcing 230 every turn seems pretty cool. I can't say why it hasn't been doing well. I can only, like I say, offer that Luke Metal and ADP are so good that why wouldn't you play them? But I'm pretty interested to see. I'll be interested to watch your video because I'm very, very interested to see how the deck works out, because I also saw the list and I was also more intrigued and thinking, how can this be good? I was actually pretty intrigued as to what was behind the deck. Maybe it'll take 5 games. We'll both have 5 games and be like, okay, this was terrible. But you know, I'm just saying, if you go first, Intrepid Sword for energy, go on then. What are you gonna do? Exactly. Going first, Intrepid Swording 3 energy. Even if they GX on 1, you get the first hit in. Still can sometimes be good, I guess. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Yeah. ADP seems, like I say, risky, but other than that, I think it probably has fairly winnable matchups outside of ADP and the fire decks. But I just think Luke Metal and ADP are so strong right now, that's why you probably wouldn't play the deck. Yeah. Right, with that all being said then, Jack, where would we put it on a tier list? Now, this is going to be super tough, because none of us actually... I played a little bit of Turbo-Zacian, but it's not this 20 energy version. And that's the godfather of Turbo-Zacian, I'm going to say. I played that way before that combo. Combo-Zacian should be called Hot Choc-Zacian. That's what it should be called, goddammit. Check the timestamps if you don't believe me. Check them. Go on, check them. You did play it little old me. I was playing it for Mr. Mime, goddammit. Like, if you prize it, there we go, happy days, right? So with that being said, it's tough. Okay, let's look at this logic. We've got tier 2.5, we've got Tina-Chomp, we've got Dragapult. I feel as if this might be the first tier 3 up, because I don't know. Is it? Can I really put it in tier 3? I don't know. What do you think, Jack? I'm either thinking 3 or 2.5. What else did we have in 2.5? We had Tina-Chomp, we had
Dragapult, Sandaconda, and Green's Senti. It's tough, isn't it?
It's either 2.5 or 3. It's a Zacian deck.
That's what I'm thinking. It's Zacian's basic 230.
But I don't know how it beats. No, I think it might be a 3.
Yeah, I'm leaning more to until I'm proven.
More I think about Eternatus as well. Eternatus seems like a hard matchup, actually, thinking about it, because they can promote something that isn't Eternatus. You knock it out. You knock them out. They hit you for 230. You knock them out. I don't know. It seems hard. Maybe there's something there, but it seems difficult.
Yeah, and I think that was one problem when I was playing, when Turbo-Zacian was a deck without combos. It was just Turbo before we got onto the Jirachi. Sometimes, as good as Zacian is, sometimes just doing 230, that might not be good enough in a format like this where, Eternatus has silly HP and it's doing silly damage. ADP taking 3 prizes. As good as Zacian is, sometimes 230, when it ain't one-shotting, it might not. It's just too one-dimensional, I feel. That's where this deck could fall down. But sometimes equally 230 for 3 on a basic is also really good. So it'd be intriguing to see how it sort of balances out, I feel, with a deck like that. Let's keep it moving then. So Welder Mewtwo. I even got this here. I did not expect it to be. We'll have to use the Galaxy Mewtwo because I haven't actually got it here. Welder Mewtwo. Now, I think a lot of people, including myself, thought, when Turbo Strike goes, that's a big part of the deck that's gone, right? But surprisingly, it's doing really well because it's probably got a good ADP-Z. That's probably the only reason. And it's serviceable everywhere else. Is that a fair assessment, Jack?
Yeah, I think the deck's actually really good. And I think it only gets better with Champion's Path. I think Incineroar V is a really, really strong card for it. Yes, definitely. It's a Solgaleo that you don't need to discard, has better typing, and you don't need to leave a Mewtwo in the active stranded. It's a 2-prizer, so pretty good, and also has a very strong second attack, which you just use on the next turn to knock whatever you hit with the first attack out. So I think Incineroar V is really, really good for the deck.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the deck is already potentially even tier 1. I think it's really, really strong. Huge benefits hugely influential in the meta. I think a lot of ADP are having to really think about this deck and how to deal with it. I think it's actually worth teching for in ADP now, potentially.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the matchup is so bad. I don't like techs in ADP at all, but I think the matchup is so bad, you might have to just to try and.
And what are those techs? Vitband, Big Charm?
I think Big Charm is better than Vitband.
Yep.
Though, if Mewtwo is playing Zigzagoon as standard, I think Vitband is better. But if Mewtwo doesn't play Zigzagoon as standard, I think Big Charm is better.
Yeah.
But I don't know that either of those do enough anyway. They're probably they help, but I don't even know that they make the matchup favorable. They just probably make it less unfavorable.
And you have to hit them still as well, because
exactly
that's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem. But you might play 2 Vitband or 2 Charm. There ain't no guarantee you're seeing that turn 1 or turn 2 max. You know what I mean? Which is sad to think about.
So I think the deck is really strong.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of Mewtwo in the past, and I'm really interested in trying this new Mewtwo out. I haven't played much of it ever since basically Sword and Shield released, because I've just been an ADP gamer since then. But oh no, there was a time where Pikarom was good as well, wasn't there? But yeah, I think it's probably tier 1. I think it has a very solid ADP matchup, and like you said, fairly serviceable in almost every other matchup.
Yeah.
The only thing I would be super scared. Eternatus can seem sketchy, I think, just because Eternatus can one-shot you so easily. Mm-hmm. But there's probably techs you can play. I don't know. It's difficult to say what the standard techs are in Mewtwo, because every Mewtwo list is so different. So I don't know. I was going to say I don't know what the standard list is at the moment, but there isn't ever really a standard Mewtwo list.
Mm-hmm. Everyone's got their sort of card they always hold on to. Like I know friend of the channel, Dimitri, he'd always play Jirachi, even though Jirachi GX, I should say, wasn't really, you know, super powerful, or people didn't play it. He was a staple in his that he'd never take out. So I think every Mewtwo player, like I'm sure Rahul's got his own, they have their own sort of, I wouldn't say crutch card, but this are the cards they like.
Yeah. Which is just kind of the way Mewtwo is. So that's fair enough. So I don't know what the standard answer to Eternatus is. I have a feeling it's some combination of things, like Muck, like what's it called? Incineroar. You know, there's probably some combination of those that makes the matchup fine. I would imagine it wouldn't be seeing as much success as it is if the matchup was particularly bad, but I don't see how it can be too favorable. But maybe it is. I don't know. But yeah, I think the deck is definitely tier 1 though. Just for having such a strong ADP alone, as well as having like a fairly decent matchup all round. I don't think there's anything you're particularly worried about when you're playing Mewtwo, other than like random Dragapults or whatever. I think you're actually fairly happy against almost every deck.
Yeah. That's the thing. I expect to see that a lot in your OPOP League tomorrow. So if you Jack, I'll put it in tier 1 as well. I think it's been seeing way too much success, and you can think, oh, okay, that's how it does that, that's how it beats that, that's how it beats that. And I guess we all wrote it off too soon, really, to be honest with you. And it does only get better. As soon as I saw that Incineroar, I was like, oh boy, that's good in Mewtwo. Check out the top 5 champions. That's video if you haven't already. Incineroar's there. Like, yeah, no, that's gonna really good for that deck as well. So I'll put it in tier 1 as well. Speaking of a deck that's probably not going to be tier 1, but oh boy, that's why I love playing it. Going to get the boys out, going Phalanx. Someone votes me in the comments. I don't know how it's pronounced. I don't care either. Just the little Spartan geezers. Make sure it was a group of 5 or there and a group of 6. Anyway, you know what I mean? Anyway, in a best of 1, good counter deck. Like, you know, we're already picking off Pikachu. We got Speaker there. Eternatus. I'm not actually. Can you one-shot Eternatus? I think you're 160. I suppose you might be able. I don't think Phalanx can even do 160, but either way, 1 prize up, big damage. It's super fun. It is fun. What I really dislike about Phalanx, though, is that you have to put 2 prizes down. That really annoys me, because they can just be like, oh, there's a little 1 prize. Yeah, don't worry about that. Let me just bing, bing, and like. But then I see some people go like a cape of toughness, making it a little bit tanky. Jack, how do you feel about Phalanx?
Haven't thought about it too much. It's got good typing for Eternatus, I guess.
Yeah.
I think you can knock out with stuff like
Dojo. You might need
Dojo and stuff. Yeah. So I guess you can one-shot Eternatus. Feels like you're not winning much outside of that, in all honesty.
I almost fell off my chair, Jesus.
But maybe there's something there. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I think
it feels like it might be at least it's fun deck, because you don't even you like, it's actually, it's not a free one-shot on Eternatus. It's actually effort. And like you say, you have to play 2 prizes down, so eventually they can just ignore your 1 prizes and start dealing with your 2 prizes. And if they deal with your 2 prizes, you actually immediately start running out of damage as well. The fact that your 2 prizes are also your damage output means that you, like, every knockout you receive, you have to do double work, because you have to shuffle it back in and then find it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's probably just a fun deck. But yeah, maybe in a best of 1 format, you can do well with it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'll probably give him 1 go in the depending on how.
I'm someone that will never ever say don't play a deck, because there's always that chance that you could win with the deck, and people have pet decks and favorite decks, stuff like that. So I'll never sit here, whenever you have me on a video, I'll never sit here and maybe I have in the past actually, I could be lying to you, but I will try to never sit here and absolutely trash on a deck, because no decks are truly, every deck can be trash and no decks are truly trash.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't play Phalanx.
I'll put
at the same time, I don't know. It's like I'll never sit here and be like, "Oh, this deck is trash. Why would you ever play it?" But you using common sense, you probably know it's not going to be the most likely deck to win you a game. So you take the deck on knowing that it's going to be an uphill battle. So that's I guess all I can say for it. You know what you're queuing up with, and if you can get past the fact that you know what you're queuing up with, you're probably going to have to high roll higher than you've ever high rolled before. Sure, queue up with it. It would make a really, really great montage moment.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm torn with this tournament, Jackie. You know, how crazy do I actually go? Do I just want to get a single win over the whole 16 weeks, whatever it is, with Green's Magneton Trevnoir, or do I actually want to try and finish mid-table? That's the problem we're dealing with here at the Slowpoke Well. So, but
that's a fair problem to have,
because that would be nothing better for a good old tweet of just Phalanx winning the game against Azul. Like, bop, there's my last 3 prizes. Team player, whatever it's called. There we go.
Nice. That would be pretty funny, to be honest.
With that being said, though, it's going to stay. At least it's fun anyway. Let's keep. Oh, we skipped over Welder Box. What was that next one? Oh no, I did skip over it. Welder Box, interesting. Now ignore the little picture here, guys. This is an old tier list. I wasn't going to re-add bad stuff, so this is going to be Welder Box talking about next. So. Interesting, like you had at the start of the format, there was a lot of the double Heatran Giant Bomb-esque version going about. I have seen some sort of standard like Victini Welder dotting about as well. I personally hate Welder decks, so you won't catch me playing them. But I know Jax has played some Welder decks before in the past, so do you feel as if there's an entry point? I know, thinking about it, Joe profiled on your channel, didn't he, the sort of halfway house baby clowns Welder deck where you sort of welder to Heatran, then you just try and clean up with some fireball circuses. Actually seems quite interesting. Is that the best way we're playing Welder?
That was something that we came up with randomly one night after a tournament. We were like, what if we played against like 3 baby Blowns in a row. It was me, him, and a couple of other people in a call. Yeah. Played against a couple of baby Blowns in a row. And we were like, baby Blowns is insane at one-shotting everything in the format. So let's supplement that with, but it has a terrible early game, right? Yeah. Because you don't have Flint anymore.
Yeah, got Flint.
So let's have the early game of Firebox, which is Heatran basically, because Heatran is nuts, and then the late game of Baby Blowns, because the late game of Baby Blowns is nuts, because you can one-shot anything. Yeah. And we played a couple of games. We made some adjustments. Played a couple more games. Made some adjustments. Played a couple more games. We were like, okay, there's actually something here. Yeah. Played a couple more games. Joe profiled it. We were like, yeah, okay, this is cool. Played a couple more games, and all of a sudden the deck started drawing awfully. Like really, really badly. And it wouldn't stop doing that.
Just wouldn't stop, guys.
So I don't know where that leaves me, because I basically gave up on the concept there and then. But I think traditional Welder Box is no longer a thing. I don't think Ninetales works anymore because you don't have Victini Prism. So the whole Baby Blowns idea, if you want to play traditional Welder Box, quote unquote, I think you have to play that build. Yep. I think that's the best build. That's been the build that's had the most, the best win rate in my testing anyway. If you want to play something wackier, there's been one thing that's been doing really well lately is Torkoal.
Oh yes.
Whilst it's not really Welder Box, I kind of would lump it in with Welder Box on the tier list because it's like the new Welder Box. Even though it has a very different win condition, it's basically like the new Welder Box, right? So yeah, I would say Torkoal is probably better than the whole Baby Blown Heatran thing. Torkoal is actually a really interesting card, and one that I think could be pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that we're up today on what something like that, dude.
Oh, there you go then.
Super strong, yeah. No, yeah. I'm surprised.
So yeah, I think if I was playing a Welder Box deck that wasn't like Baby Blowns or Firebox, it would probably be Torkoal. Feels kind of high rolly, and I don't like how you need 4 energy for one of the attacks. That's super sus because it means that you have to set it up over 2 turns if you're not playing anything like scuff like Energy Switch or anything crazy like that. Which no one is. So I don't like that. But apart from that, like getting rid of 2 energy is so much more impactful than getting rid of 1. It sounds obvious, but it's actually crazy.
2
energy
nuts.
is nuts.
Like,
yeah.
Like we were saying about Eternatus, they're not playing Turbo Patch at NEX, so you're like, boof. Go on then, boy. What are you doing next turn then, Sunshine? Like,
it's
literally, like,
it's actually crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you want to play traditional Welder box, try out double Heatran, double Baby Blown, and like double Cram, or like 1 Cram or something. If you want to play Welder box, but like New Age Welder box, try out Torkoal, because Torkoal seems decent. It doesn't seem great, but it seems like decent. I'd probably put it in with like the Decigoons tier. Like is that tier 2? I'd probably put it in.
Yeah. I'll put Torkoal into it. I would as well. Yeah, no, Torkoal's good.
Yeah, I think it's around there. I think it's way better than the Baby Blown thing upon testing it more. The Baby Blown thing works really well, but you have to high roll with it. But if you high roll with it, it feels really, really strong because you basically 2-shot 2 VMAXs in 2 turns. And there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
But the more consistent, quote unquote, well, not more consistent way of doing that, but a different way of doing that is Torkoal that's been seeing a fair bit of play recently, and I would probably say is a better win con than just the random Baby Blown Heatran thing, because the Baby Blown Heatran thing works, but it's way more high roll.
Yeah, that's fair. Right, so for you guys watching, then that Heatran there, that is the Torkoal. And then where would you put traditional, the old school double Blown Welder then, sorry?
Double Blown Welder, probably lower, probably like 2.5. Because it's so high roll.
Yeah.
Like the list sometimes had to cut boss. It was like you had no gusting, which was just gross, just to be consistent. So yeah, I don't think it's high. No, I don't think it's higher than tier 2.5.
Yeah, I'll put it at the bottom of 2.5. Yeah. And then in post editing, Shay, remind me, I will change those pictures. But for now, if I haven't, the top one is Torkoal and the bottom one is additional. I will change it. I definitely will. Okay, let's keep it in the Welder. I've changed the order up a little bit on you, Jack. Only a tiny bit though. Baby Clowns, just a straight Baby Clowns. I feel you see it pop up, but I do feel there might be a hint of it's just because a lot of people are playing it. Like without Flint, I'm not really. So I've played against it a lot online, and if anyone who knows me, I hate Baby Clowns. But now if I queue into Baby Clowns on the ladder, I'm like, okay, let's be honest here. I'm gonna win a really slow game. I'm taking 1 prize a turn. I don't respect it that much now, Jack. Do you?
I think it's a lot worse without Flint. It did really well at the start of the format, and then it's kind of dropped off a cliff. I feel so. Maybe it'll have a resurgence at some point. There was a really interesting list with like triple Cramorant for a while.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Which looked kind of interesting. Basically being like, okay, I'm just going to cram 3 things rather than go down the Baby Blown route, which is interesting. I don't know whether there was any. I don't know whether that did well or anything. I just remember seeing it like over 2 or 3 days a few weeks ago. All of a sudden be popular. I really don't know where to place Baby Blowns because, like I say, I feel like I haven't seen results from it very recently at all. So that makes me think it's probably not great. But that being said, Baby Blowns is still a deck that can potentially always like one-shot anything, which is kind of scary. The more we play Marnie though, the less good it is. I want to put it again in like 2 probably. Lower end of 2 because I feel like I'm just not seeing it very much, which makes me think the win rate is low. Maybe it's better than I'm giving it credit for, but based on the lack of results and the lack of the little I've seen it on ladder, I haven't played too much ladder recently anyway, but the ladder I have played, I don't think I've played against it once. I feel like I haven't seen it in a tournament for like 2 or 3 weeks, so that leads me to assume the deck is fairly weak and not really above tier 2.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to put it. I went towards the bottom end because I haven't seen it part of the top at all. It's like I said at the start, it did. No, it hasn't. So that lead me to believe it's not doing as good in people's hands anymore. And now let's keep moving to a deck that has been doing supremely good. And I know, Jack, I think you've mentioned it a couple times. You have been playing this one a little bit. Melmetal-Zacian. I think, was it a mirror in Players' Cup? I'd like to say something silly.
Yeah. The final was a mirror, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what, that'd be a fun game to play. How does Melmetal shape up these days?
I actually really like the deck. I think it's a really, really strong deck. I've always kind of liked Melmetal anyway, but I think the deck is pretty strong. I think the Eternatus matchup is fairly strong. The biggest point of contention is probably whether to play Bronzong or not.
Yep.
Bronzong was really good early on.
Yeah.
Because no one expected it. Now everyone expects it. I think Bronzong, you either have to double down on the Bronzong and play like a 3/3 and 4 com, which is obviously a huge space commitment. That's 10 slots. Or you play none of that and just play like hammers or something instead. And I personally prefer the hammers stuff, especially for our league, because there's actually not that many fire decks around right now. It's basically Centiskorch, right? So it's not, and because it's only best of one, and because you have to bring 3 different decks, you're not going to be, the Bronzong is going to be bad in at least 2 of the 3 games, almost 100%. Yeah. So I think for our league exactly, Bronzong is pretty bad. But further, I don't particularly like Bronzong right now anyway, because again, it feels like the fire decks can just play Cramorant or a double to deal with it. I haven't seen the latest Centiskorch lists that have won. I haven't done my research on the lists from this week yet. I usually take a look, or I try to take a look at lists that have done well if they're easily accessible. So I don't know whether they've stopped teching for Bronzong. If they have, maybe it's time for Bronzong to come back in these tournaments like Hegster and the Sunday Open and stuff like that. But outside of that, I haven't played Bronzong too much. I've always been more of a hammer. Well, I've always played hammers over the Bronzongs. So, and I'm still playing hammers over the Bronzongs now. Yeah. But yeah, I think the deck is pretty good, and I actually think the deck is it's probably like top of tier 1.5, I'd say. What's in our tier 1?
We have Eternatus and Welder Mewtwo. See, when I queue into a Melmetal, I'm scared, man. I'm shivering. I don't want to play against that,
It's between 1 and 1.5. I actually think the deck is really strong, and it is fairly underrated in some circumstances. Let's go top of 1.5.
Okay, I just scraped him in the bottom of 1, to be honest with you, because
that's fine.
It's scary, man. I think it's I get scared of that deck. You always think, oh, it's fine, I can just muscle through. You ain't muscling through, fellas. It ain't happening. Scary deck. Don't underestimate. Like I said, if you do run into a Bronzong and you're playing Welder and you're not respecting it, you're in a whole world of trouble. So I think I respect it quite a lot, and I'll be scared if I went into it in the OPOP league, not gonna lie to you. That's a scary deck. Oh my lord. Right, so we only got a few left now. Last 3. Mad Party. Now this might be my new deck I hate the most. Cause hang on.
Boy.
Yeah, let me get close to this camera and move that mic in close. Right. I have multiple files on my hard drive, right? Says time the Mad Party turns. You time how long they take. Maybe you can get a ratio up here where you time how long they take and how much damage. Because if I see Mad Party, it's there till I do this. This is no word of, that's what I'll do. I might get my phone. I got my tablet stand here. I might watch some basketball. I'll come back. I'll be like, okay, how much is it? Oh, 60. Okay, my turn then. No, stop it. I hate it. Stop playing this stupid deck on the ladder. Stress me out. You ain't even got Stefan's combo Jirachi anymore. Oh, I've actually got myself a bit worked up thinking about it.
It's a pretty annoying deck.
I hate that deck. They're all like, oh, Tea Party, Hapu, 80. Oh, okay. Right, shut up.
I know what you mean.
Get out my face.
So long. Like the Night March turns used to be.
Yeah.
But the Night March turns at least, like you'd get knocked out, you'd be pretty annoyed about it, but it would have been like something would have happened. But the Mad Party turns, or as long as the Night March turns, and like you say, 80, like, oh. Yeah,
okay.
That's it.
So, I'm going to pass it over to my level-headed, clever person over there, Jack. Because with that being said, I've seen it pop up a little bit, and I'm just thinking, well, they must be cleverer than the people I play against it, because I give it no respect. Jack, do you give it much respect?
I think it's great. I think with the amount of Zigzagoon in the format, it's a super sketchy deck to play because everything has like 30, 40, 60 HP. So that's
fair.
Spooky as is. You definitely can trade up on stuff, and there's like super high roll moments where you do hit 180 turn 1, and it's actually enough. In our early testing, it actually had an okay ADP-Z matchup, which is pretty interesting. But I think as ADP-Z has settled down and has become more consistent, it probably isn't as good. It was probably just not anomalous data necessarily, but not necessarily completely relevant to now. And yeah, I feel like there's less Dragapult now, so it's not as scared as it was like pre-rotation.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think regardless, it's still pretty bad. I'd probably say like 2.5 in all honesty. It's a lot of fun, and I actually think it's probably better than some of the fun decks. Well, I play Toxicity over it, but that's just because I prefer Toxicity as a deck.
Yeah.
Mad Party is probably better than Toxicity. Maybe it is just in the fun category. I don't know. It's pretty low in my mind.
Yeah.
It's not a great deck at all.
I think I'm gonna put it now. I'm gonna be objective now, because obviously I could just put it in a tier below fun because it's not even fun. But I think I'm gonna put it in tier 3. I do think it's better than the fun decks.
Okay.
I don't think it's quite fun category because there will be some games where you are like, oh, I'm actually doing 180, great. Like, no, I'm joking, but there will be some games where you do actually pop off. And I'm looking at and at least it's fun anyway. I do think you'll win more games than Firelines. I do think you'll win more games with Hydreigon. Pains me to say it. This is when a good player's playing it. Just saying, you people playing on a ladder take like 5 minutes to do 60 damage, just stop it. And I do think you win more games with Toxicity, so I do think it has to go up a tier, but I don't think it's quite in the 2.5 tier, so tier 3, I think that's quite a fair enough place for me.
Sure.
Right, what have we got next then? 2 lefts, Vikavolt variants. Again, these were archetypes that used to scare hearts. No, scare the hearts of children. But oh my god, Seismitoad. And what was I saying the whole time? No, it's not. If you were playing when Seismitoad was a thing, there you go, story time with Berts now. If you were playing when Seismitoad was a thing, you would instantly know this is not Seismitoad. Oh, and I was right again. What a shock. So, Vikavolt hasn't done too much. You see it crop up every now and then, and when you do see it pop up, you're like, your eyes raise. Like, oh, whoa, Vikavolt. That's how you know it's not terribly good. Jack, how do you feel about Vikavolt?
In my mind, it's like maybe 2.5 because item lock is still a thing, and like I think the only way you can play it is the Vikavolt Amoongus deck.
Yep.
And if there will be games where item lock plus sleep wins you the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's tier 2.5. I think it's like probably low tier 2.5. I'm not particularly impressed with the deck at all, but it can probably steal wins because of the win condition it has.
Mm-hmm.
All of these VMAXs are an issue because they take so long to get through. Like it's painful for it must be as painful for the Vikavolt player at this point. Like Seismitoad, it was painful for one person because you were item locking them, but at least you were doing damage. But like the Vikavolt player must also be like, God, this is taking a long time now. So yeah, all these VMAXs is super sketchy. But again, you probably just win games because of item lock plus sleep, and that probably means it's 2.5 because its win rate isn't as low as some of this other stuff. I wouldn't recommend playing it. I've seen, I saw someone saying it was their pet deck for this format, and it had been doing well. And I would imagine it will do well in certain scenarios, but I don't think it's majorly consistent. And I think sensible players, if they're not scammed by sleep flips, should often have a strategy of how to beat it, even if they haven't been testing it recently. Because I think that I think they will have. So I think in general, it's a pretty interesting deck, and I think it will steal wins. I don't think it's particularly strong, but I think if you can catch someone unawares of it, it could be pretty good. And I can see why seeing a little bit of play, just because if people like stop respecting it, stop playing switches and Eternatus and stuff, and start playing all the retreat stuff again, it gets pretty good. The awkward thing is, with people starting to tech Alolan Muck, sometimes the techs can like cross over. Sometimes the counters to Alolan Muck can kind of cross over with Vikamungus, but because you item lock as well, it's sometimes okay. So yeah, item lock is strong, and being item locked when you can't attack or retreat as well is pretty gross. So yeah, there's probably something there, but I think in general the win condition is weaker and less consistent, and as such is probably only a 2.5 deck in my mind.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'll be putting it as well, in the bottom of... yeah, I mean, there have been some times where I've queued into it and I just wasn't ready and it bops you. But equally, I have tried a lot, and we'll zoom in a little bit more, a lot, Vikavolt variants, just trying to give it that oomph. Like, if I was to say I've tried ADP Vikavolt, I wouldn't be lying to you. Weren't very good. I've tried the poison... Yeah. Yeah, you do a little bit of extra damage, you know, take some prizes, lock up that. Then now you're taking 3 prizes off it. Maybe I should give that a bit, because there were some games that you did, but then I don't know, a multitude of energy costs there. But
yeah.
Guz Hala, you're a Wolverine, get that Gala mine out too, wink wink. But yeah, that might be something I look back into, but I don't know. Like you said, I feel the best way at the minute is the sleep variant, but I wouldn't like, maybe in like OP League it could be quite strong, but you would never catch me taking this to like a Neil Pie Open, like playing like 10 rounds with it. You're mad. You won't catch me doing that, that's for sure. Right then, so our last one, Jack, and then I'll let you go to bed, good sir. We've got control variants. Now, I'm going to be using the Starly picture, but we know we do have the Exegil version, and we have Birdkeeper Starly. Shout out to that guy on Twitter, his name I forgot. Oh, Gabby, I believe, the control maestro who dislikes any ADP thing I play. This is for you, good sir. So, control. Again, it's a deck that I used to play a lot, but super back in the day. Wishy-washy walls. Haven't touched it ever since. Not really my kind of thing. You do get your players that do awesome well with it, and control will never ever go away, because as long as it exists in some capacity, it will crop up. We might be seeing that crop up now. With that being said, Jack, do you feel as if it could, take up some meta share and actually be good, or is it just a deck for you control diehards to try and perfect?
Okay, control's in a really weird spot. I think it's a very good deck, and off the bat, I'm gonna say it's tier 1.5, like top of tier 1.5. I think it's really, really strong.
Wow, okay.
The difficulty control has is every single tournament, well, not every single, but most online tournaments, as well as the OPOP League, is all best of 1.
Yeah.
And it's best of 1 25 minutes, and that's sometimes not long enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that can hurt the deck. In untimed scenarios, I think the deck is very, very strong.
Okay.
I've seen Tord play it. I've seen a couple of other people play it. I've sat and chatted with Joe as he's been playing it. I haven't tried it myself, but I feel like I've been in the driving seat of the deck enough to know that the deck is very good.
Okay.
Like I say, the difficulty with the reason why I think it's not been doing very well is because the tournaments don't lend themselves to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And as such, I don't think it's a very good play, because I don't think, like I say, the tournaments lend themselves to being able to do well with the deck. That being said, in untimed tournaments, in tournaments where it's best of 3 instead of best of 1, I could see the deck being a fairly good pick. And even in the OPOP League, because technically there's no time limits to the rounds, we haven't said there's a time limit, so it's okay in the OPOP League. It's actually probably one of the best tournaments one of the tournaments it's best in, because it's untimed, which is interesting. So yeah, I think that's why it's not seeing a lot of play in things like Hegster and Pi and Pokex and all of these various different tournament circuits. I think that's why it's not being or doing particularly well, because none of the tournaments are particularly good formats for it, because they're all best of 1 25-minute rounds, and it's very difficult to win in that amount of time. But I think the raw 60 cards are very, very good, and I played a lot of Pidgeotto Control last year, and was never really fussed by Cincino Control. Played a bit of Cincino Mill, it was alright, but never really took off with it. Never played Dolstall. This is the latest. This is the, ever since Pidgeotto Control, this is the next control deck that I think looks good enough to play, and that I want to learn, because I think it looks interesting as well. So yeah, I think the deck is really good. I think the tournament circuit right now is not really good for it, and because of that, I probably wouldn't recommend playing it in a lot of these tournaments. But I think ladder, I think probably the OPOP League, it's a pretty good pick. I know there's been a couple of players play it so far. I know there's a couple of players that have told me this week they're playing it in their upcoming matches. So
great.
I know people are trying it in this format, and we'll have to wait and see maybe after the first 2 or 3 weeks whether it works out in this kind of format before I commit time to it. But I do think it's as a raw deck, I think it's really strong, and I do think it's top of tier 1.5, I'd say.
Wow, so you're putting it top of 1.5 as well. Geez,
it's at least in 1.5.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's only 2 decks in there, to be fair, so including
yeah.
Alright, so I better brush up on my control, or how to play against it, I should say, because I have a feeling I'm going to run into it.
The one thing I will say is, I said about learning it, it's not much different from Pidgeotto Control, I don't think. I think it's almost identical to Pidgeotto Control. It can't mill anymore because you don't have Belelba, so it's just handlock nowadays. There's no stuff about it. It's basically just a less consistent Pidgeotto Control. So if you knew how to play Pidgeotto Control, I would say you probably are off on the right foot. And if you knew how to play against Pidgeotto Control, you probably already have a fairly good understanding of the kind of things you're going to be up against in the deck. It just has to do it a bit more inconsistently, because we don't have like Mars and stuff. Like, there's no random Marsing stuff away anymore. You basically have to let them take 4 prizes and lock them from there. There's no trying to lock people early anymore. You basically have to say, I'll go down to 2 prizes, and then cross all of your fingers, all of your toes, and hope that they don't draw out. And if they don't, it's pretty good. I think ADP is still kind of sketchy, by the way. I still think, despite it being a very strong pick, I think it's a very strong pick against a variety of decks that aren't ADP. I think against ADP it could be kind of sketchy. The one deck I haven't seen it played against is Centiskorch. So I have no idea whether Centiskorch attaching from the discard is enough
to keep it.
So that I will say I have no idea how that matchup goes. That's one that I think you probably have to really establish how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have no idea how that matchup goes. I wouldn't know whether the attachment from the bench is enough. The discard is enough. I would say Centiskorch can probably outscale you. But Welder decks are infamous for needing a big hand, so the chip block is also probably stronger against them than a lot of other decks. So maybe if you can get them into the chip block, it's fine. It's just whether you can get them into the chip block in the first place.
Okay, so better brush up on your control, fellas, because I don't want to lose to that. Let me tell you, I'm playing like Dragapult, playing also. I'm not sure. Okay, right, so let's have a final look at the tier list then, for all you people that's going to skip to the end of the screenshot. There you go. If you are watching to the end, though, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone that's watched, obviously. Shout outs to Jack as well for coming on here. What a legend. You know, they're the ones sorting out this OP League, and he's come sit down with me to talk about some Pokemon. So the floor is yours, Jack. Fire away.
I guess, Omnipoke is where you can catch me and Joe. We're streaming YouTube content, that kind of stuff. OmniPoke on YouTube, Team OmniPoke on Twitter. Oh no, on Twitch, and OmniPoke on Twitter. My personal Twitter is Joldylocks with a Z. I'm sure Shay will have it. I think he said he was going to have it somewhere on the screen.
Yeah, it's been scrolling through for people watching.
Thank you so much for all the support in the league and my new Back to Basics series as well. The league took so much effort on my part. It was a lot of late nights, so it's really nice to see everyone being hyped for it, both from the content creator side, but from the viewer side as well. So it's really nice to see everyone's looking forward to it. And yeah, if you're new to the game, I know there's probably some of you out there that may be new to the game. My latest series, Back to Basics, is taking a completely fresh PTC Geo account with no codes whatsoever, and I'll basically be running through as if I'm a completely new player, giving you tips, tricks, what to buy, what to trade for, that kind of thing. So make sure you check out those videos as well, because they're really good for new players getting into the game. And yeah, other than that, thank you so much for having me, Shay. It's been a whole heap of fun, as always. I love these chats.
Thank you for coming on. So as of recording, I've got my first OPOP game tomorrow about midday against the Sableye. I know Mitch is a clever geezer, so I'm going to have to be practicing tonight. Now get ironing those lists, baby. But there will be some spice, so we'll see how we do. But obviously, thank you all guys for watching. If you've watched this far, you're not subscribed now, come on. You must like a bit of the slowpoke. Well, hit that subscribe button down there. Check out the socials, Hotshot PTCG, I should say. Check out the merch. Go on, Jack, show them that Eternatus hoodie, baby.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? Woo! Look at
Shay's merch store.
Look at that.
I picked up a t-shirt and a jumper the other day, and they are really, really good. So yeah. Make sure you check out Shay's merch store as well.
Check out the merch, or check out the Twitter, check out the YouTube. I think that's all my plugs. Oh, and JGC Collectibles. If you're in the UK, you need some stuff, sealed or singles, use discount code slowpoke5, 5% off, all that good stuff. But I'm gonna let you all go now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.